Good morning. We're going to make our buns today. I think I mentioned yesterday that this is a discard recipe. So we're going to use some yeast with it and eggs and milk as you would if you were making an enriched dough. So it'll be more like hamburger buns you get from the store rather than a really dense sourdough bun. So I fed my starter last night and it rose and fell because it was really warm in here. It was pretty hot yesterday. I've got my bowl on my scale. So generally you just, I don't know if you have a scale, but it really makes getting the ratios a lot more accurate. And so I really like using it and actually prefer it these days. So I'm gonna put in, make sure you tare it when you're, if you have one, you know how to do this, but get it on 0 while the bowl's on there so that you get an accurate measurement. I'm gonna put in with a shaky camera because it's hard to hold a phone and put flour in, I guess. Let's see. I guess you don't need to see all of this. Well, here, just a second. Okay, well, obviously not a professional. That's okay. So I've got 240 grams of flour in there. Now you can use white flour. You could use wheat flour, whatever you want. You can mix them. Just know that wheat flour is denser than all-purpose flour. And I'm just making buns, so I didn't put any wheat flour in here today. I've got I usually do like my dry ingredients and then kind of whisk them. So, and then I add my wet ingredients. Some people think you shouldn't put salt in before the starter because they say that it messes with the starter, but I haven't found that to be the case. This is just how I do it. Like I said, I mix the dry ingredients, then I make like a little well, and I put the wet ingredients in the middle. So I need a half a cup of warm milk, an egg, another thing is if your recipe calls for like, I don't know, a half a cup or a full cup of starter or 100 grams of starter or whatever, and you only have, if you have a little bit less than that, you don't have quite enough, it's okay. Your starter will still rise your dough. It just might take a little bit longer. You want to try and get as close to the ratio as you can, but you really don't need to stress out about it. So I'm just going to put my whole discard from my little batch that I fed last night in here. And this is a pretty wet dough. Well, my recipe calls for half a cup, and I don't know, it looks like half a cup. I'm not going to measure it though. So I did that. This is how much I left in my jar. Oh, sorry. Still learning how to use this camera, I guess. Okay, not much. Just enough to feed. So I'll feed that when I'm done. I put the lid on it because sometimes I forget and then it dries out and you don't want that to happen. I hope you can see what I'm doing okay. And this calls for sugar, but I'm not going to use sugar. I'm going to put a little bit of honey in there. After my dough prepared, of course. Alright. Hold on. Okay, I found it. So it calls for half a teaspoon. Just gonna eyeball it. That works. Okay, so I have this really stiff spatula. It's hard plastic and comes with dog hair. I got that off. Okay, so I don't know where you can get these. This came with my food processor, but I find it to be perfect for the job. So I just kind of slush it around a little bit and scrape down the sides. Some people use a dough whisk. You could use that. You could use just a regular spatula. I just like the stiffness of this one for scraping the sides and such. Also, there's one of these things. It's a bowl scraper. Got this at Walmart. that might work. You might get your hands a little messy, but it might do the job. So you just want to create a shaggy dough here. I'm sorry that I don't have a tripod or a stand or anything for my phone. I'll move it when I get it all mixed for you so you can see. So they call this shaggy dough. It's not anything, like, you don't have to have a perfect consistency. You just want to try and incorporate all the flour. Alright, so there it is. That's the shaggy dough. It looks like a mess. I'm going to scrape down the sides of the bowl, and then I'm going to I usually just put a plate over the top. And I'm going to let it rest for 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and do the first stretch and fold. Okay, it's been about 30 minutes and my dough still looks shaggy. I'm going to do my first stretch and fold. So you want to get your hand wet because obviously it's very sticky. So I just run my hand under water, and I don't really shake it off or anything. And then you want to get up under the dough and pick it up and stretch it a little bit. You don't want to tear it. Just up a little bit like that, and work your way around the bowl. Pull it up good like that. And we're building gluten by doing this. We're going to let it sit again. You can see that it's still shaggy, but it's a little smoother than it was. So we're going to let it sit again for another 30 minutes. And you can rush this process a little bit. You can rush the process and do it like every 15 minutes or every 20 minutes, but we're going to do it a total of 4 times. So the first couple times it's really sticky, but I mean, that's not bad. Get your hand wet, and it helps keep it from sticking too bad. All right, we'll be back in a few. Okay, we're back. I think it's been like 25 minutes or so. You can probably see that the dough is a lot smoother now. It's going to be a lot easier to work with. So we're basically just going to do our stretch and fold again. Look how much easier that stretches. Can you see that? Sorry about my shadow and the light. I'm trying to make it brighter in here. That doesn't really work. So pull it up, spin it around, and now it's really easy to pick up. Remember how sticky it was? So you can avoid doing the stretch and fold if you have a stand mixer. I mean, you can totally just do what you would do to knead in the stand mixer. See that? It's getting a lot easier to work with. Okay, here we are again. You see the difference? It's risen a little bit. You won't notice so much rise without yeast, but the consistency will still be a lot better as time goes. Look how stretchy that is now. You see that? Oh, I don't want to tear it. And it's nice and smooth and a lot less sticky. I actually think 3 times is enough because this is ready to just sit and rise. And you'll know, I can't remember if people say 3 or 4. I do 3 or 4. I don't think it matters that much. You just want it to be shapeable. And this I can definitely shape now. Just turn it on. So all I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to put my plate on upside down now because it's going to rise. And if you leave it up like this, then it's going to stick to the bottom. So I'm just going to turn it upside down, and then I'm going to let my dough ferment. So again, since it's a yeast spread, it's not going to take very long. But we'll be back, and I'll show you how to work with the dough when it's ready to use. Talk to you later. Okay, we're back. Good and bubbly. It's been a lot longer than I anticipated because I had to go shopping. So probably 2 hours or something. Anyway, It's fine. It's doing fine. The more you ferment, the more of a true sourdough you're going to get. Okay, so just a very thin layer. I have a big pile over on the side. Just a very thin layer of flour. It's still going to be a really sticky dough. So flour whatever you're scraping your bowl with. And you don't have to have one of these, but these are good for scraping the counter when you're done, because again, it's sticky, and also cutting it into portions. I got this set at Walmart, and it was super cheap. I don't know. I imagine you can find something on Amazon too. So I don't punch it down because we're going to do that. I'm just going to scrape it out of the bowl. And you want to use as little flour as you need to, because you want to keep it, if you want to keep it true sourdough. Oh dear. I'm sorry. Okay, that's not working. Just a second. Okay. Oh, that was something. My phone is covered with flour. It's okay. So you want to kind of squeeze the air out. I guess the punching down would be the same thing. So generally what I do is try and get it in a little bit of a rectangle for buns. If I were doing bread, I would roll it all up on itself now at this point. But I'm going to portion it. I'm making 4 with this. They're going to be kind of big, but that works. And it's really sticky, so just be ready. And it's okay. Just try and work quickly so that it doesn't stick to you so much. And don't get frustrated. It just takes a little bit of practice. The first time I did this, I made it on parchment paper. Oh my gosh, it was such a mess. It was such a mess. It was sticking to the parchment. I didn't put any flour down. The parchment was peeling up, and it was just a wreck. Okay, so I've got this flat piece of dough. I'm going to roll it all up on itself, and this is what you would do with like a bread loaf as well. And then I'm going to tuck it up and under. And some people know how to do this with one hand, like to roll it on its. I don't. So I just squeeze underneath it while I'm spinning it, and kind of pushing it down on the counter. Like, you want to build the surface tension, like so. But you see, I haven't really added much more flour, just a tiny bit. And that's good. You get this little ball. And that'll be my hamburger bun. And I know this is weird. I just made this ball with all this tension. But that's going to create all those little nooks and crannies. I'm going to smash it down and make it the size I want it. So even just rolling it around like that the surface tension is helping to build the inside of it into, what you would have the little crumb. I think it's called crumb, all the little holes. So here we go, another one. Roll it all up nice and tight. And same thing. I'm pushing it down and also building it up a little bit. And then I'll put it in, smash it into the shape I want. And we're going to let these rise as well, just like you would if you were making buns. Okay, so that's the next step. And then basically you just bake them. Or I guess I'm going to let them rise probably for an hour or something. The longer you let it sit, even if it's got yeast in it, the more it ferments. So you just don't want to over ferment it, because then it tastes really sour and it doesn't rise quite right. But as long as you're noticing continual rise, it's not over fermented. And it'll turn out. This is so easy. Like when I first started, I was really stressed out about doing everything right and getting all the ratios correct and everything. And the first few loaves I made were kind of flat, and it's not that big of a deal. Like especially the one on the parchment paper. You get the hang of it. You just have to work with it a little bit. But I think you can see that there's hardly any flour here. You still want that nice sticky dough. That'll keep it from drying out. And there, I've got my 4 hamburger buns. I recently got this hamburger bun mold, and I made hamburger buns in it the other day, and it was great. Here, I'll show you. Pretty cool. So anyway, I'm just gonna let these rest for probably an hour or a little more, and then I will bake them, and then I'll have buns for dinner.